Hello and welcome back to another deep dive. Today, we're going to do something a little different, maybe even a bit counterintuitive. We're going to take a document that, on its face, looks like the absolute driest piece of corporate literature you could possibly find.
Right, the kind of thing you use to prop up a wobbly table leg.
Exactly. And we're going to try and uncover the human drama that's hidden right inside of it. We're looking at a document titled the 2025 IIT Relationship Health Assessment Full Enhanced Leadership Report.
It's a mouthful.
It is. It's dated January 22, 2026.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Once you crack this open, it stops being a spreadsheet and it starts reading like a psychological thriller about a massive organization in the middle of a serious identity crisis.
And we should probably set the stage here. This isn't just like a small company figuring out its Wi-Fi password.
Wow.
We're talking about the School of Medicine and Public Health, SMPH, and its relationship with its central IT department, which is known as IIT.
And the stakes here are really high. This relationship we're talking about, it dictates whether life-saving research gets done on time, whether major grants are won or lost.
Or even just whether clinical operations can run smoothly day to day. It's critical stuff.
Right. So this report is essentially a massive system-wide marriage counseling session between the school and the IT department. And right out of the gate, on page 1, they give this relationship a score, one single number.
The core metric, the big headline, and that number is 63.4 out of 100.
63.4. Now, I don't know about you, but if I came home with a 63.4 on a test, my parents would have had, they would have had some questions.
Yeah, that's not a score you put on the fridge. It's a passing grade, but barely.
But the report puts a label on the score. They call it a developing partnership.
Which is such a fascinating choice of words, isn't it? It's perfectly polite, very corporate speak. But when you actually strip it down, it's a very, very specific diagnosis. A developing partnership in this kind of framework, it basically means, look, we trust you to keep the lights on day to day, but we absolutely do not trust you to help us design the house.
So, reliable for the small stuff, but not strategic for the big picture.
Precisely. The report says the school sees IT as well-intentioned. They believe the staff are trying hard. The emails go through, the servers usually stay up, but the execution,
Consistent.
Wildly inconsistent. And the communication is spotty at best. And crucially, IIT is missing from the table when the big long-term decisions are being made. So you're left with this mix of, cautious optimism and just this deep-seated frustration.
And that really is the headline for our deep dive today. It might sound like a corporate buzzword, but this is a story about an entire organization trying to evolve from being seen as the fix-it guys.
The people you call when your printer is jammed.
Right, to becoming strategic partners.
Yeah.
And that transition, as this report shows, it's painful.
It's incredibly painful because it demands a complete cultural shift, not just a technical one.
So here's our mission for this deep dive. We're going to unpack why that score is stuck at 63.4. We're going to look at this very weird phenomenon that the report calls the split experience.
Ah, yes, the split experience. This is where users absolutely love their local IT person, but seem to really distrust the central system.
We are also going to dig deep into something called the hero problem. And this is the part that I think should really keep the leadership up at night.
It should. It's this realization that the organization's success is dangerously, and I mean dangerously, dependent on specific people rather than on actual repeatable processes.
And then we have a genuine mystery to solve. It's called the CAO Advisory Group Paradox. I promise you, when we get to the data on this, it makes absolutely no sense on the surface.
Not at all. It's completely counterintuitive until you dig into the psychology of it.
And finally, we'll map out the path they propose. How do you get from this person-dependent success to real, durable, institution-level reliability? Because right now, the whole system is fragile.
Very fragile.
So let's start right there with that fragility. Section 1 of our dive, the hero complex. The report starts by describing a tale of two IITs. What is going on here?
Okay, so this is the split experience in a nutshell. If you look at the raw data, the TRIS scores are actually pretty high for what they call the local neighborhood teams.
Neighbor teams?
These are the IT support staff who are physically embedded in the department. The trust is also high for a group called the Business Relationship Managers, or BRM.
Okay, so let's visualize this. If I'm a researcher in a lab or a doctor in a clinic, the neighborhood team is.
Yeah,
That the person whose office is down the hall from you.
Exactly. It's the proximity effect. You like them because they're right there. They know your context. They know that if they unplug that specific server, your 48-hour experiment on protein folding is completely ruined.
They know my name.
They know your name. They probably know your kids' names. You might have coffee with them. There's a human relationship.
So I trust Dave, who works down the hall. But what about the other IIT? What's the other side of that coin?
The other side is all the centralized processes. The main ticketing system, the central help desk, the big governance boards that make the rules. And the scores for those are significantly lower.
Why?
Because they feel slow. They feel opaque. You don't know what's happening. And they feel completely impersonal.
It sounds like the difference between getting a handshake and getting a form letter.
I was thinking it's like going to a restaurant where your waiter is just absolutely amazing.
Okay.
You know, they're charming. They're refilling your water before you even have to ask. They're sincerely apologizing for any delay. But the kitchen is on fire.
Right. So the food comes out cold. The order is wrong.
And the waiter is just standing there helpless, just apologizing over and over for a system they have absolutely no control over.
That's a perfect analogy. You end up loving the waiter, but you would never, ever recommend the restaurant.
And the report backs this up explicitly. It says, and this is almost a direct quote, that high-scoring departments attribute their success almost entirely to the preservation of historical relationships.
So basically they're saying, we're doing okay because we still have our Dave, and Dave knows how to work around the broken system for us.
That is it, 100%. And the low-scoring departments, well, they're the ones who don't have a Dave. They're the ones stuck trying to navigate the official service lines and the 1-800 numbers.
Which brings us to what I think is the most shocking statistic in this entire document. I know we look at a lot of data, but this one really jumped off the page.
We called it the old guard stat in our notes.
Yeah.
And it's the critical insight of the whole report, in my opinion.
So what did they find?
The analysts looked for the single strongest predictor of satisfaction across the entire school. It wasn't the budget of the department. It wasn't how new their computers were. It was one thing: the retention of historical IT staff.
The people who had been there forever.
The old guard. Now, here are the numbers, because they are just wild. The overall score, as we said, is 63.4. But the report runs a simulation. It says, what happens if you remove the scores from only those departments that still have their long-tenured legacy staff?
Okay, what happened?
The overall score drops by 10 to 15 points.
Wait, a 15-point drop?
Yes, a 10 to 15-point drop. That would take them from developing partnerships straight down into the needs improvement category, which is, for all intents and purposes, a failing grade.
Wow. That's an incredibly precarious position to be in. The users are essentially admitting, we didn't score your system highly. We scored these specific people highly.
They're grading the individual, not the institution.
Yeah.
And it leads directly to this dangerous concept of key person dependency.
The hero problem.
The hero problem. In this organization, success relies on what they call institutional memory. It relies on someone knowing, from experience, that the legacy database in the genetics lab crashes if you try to run a big query after 4 p.m.
Or knowing exactly which person to call in another department to get something approved because they were there when the process was set up 10 years ago.
Exactly. It's knowledge that lives entirely in people's heads. It's not written down in a manual anywhere.
It's an oral tradition, not a documented process.
Correct. And the danger, which the report highlights over and over, is that if these anchors leave, if Dave retires, or Sarah gets a better job offer from a tech company, or even if they just get sick for a couple of weeks,
the whole department loses that context instantly.
And their satisfaction doesn't just dip, it plummets. Because suddenly, nobody else knows how to fly the plane. The system is, quite literally, one resignation away from a major crisis.
Yeah, and the report calls this the hero problem, which is such an interesting term, isn't it? Because normally, you think of heroes as a good thing.
Yeah.
We celebrate heroes.
We want heroes in movies, maybe in sports, but in business operations, heroes are actually a symptom of a deeply broken process. Well, if you need a hero to swoop in and save the day every Tuesday afternoon, that means your Tuesday afternoon process is fundamentally flawed. Sustainable organizations, healthy organizations, they run on playbooks, not on individual heroism.
Because heroes eventually burn out. Or they retire, or they win the lottery.
Exactly. And the playbook stays, so what's the fix? You can't just, forbid people from retiring or taking vacation.
Right.
The report suggests some very specific tactical shifts. First, they talk about knowledge capture sprints.
Which sounds like something you do at a corporate retreat, but what does it actually mean?
It's about taking dedicated, paid time to get that crucial information out of the expert's head and into a wiki or a shared document or some kind of knowledge base.
So you literally sit Dave down and say, walk me through what you do every single Tuesday, step by step, and you write it all down.
You do, and you create key personnel transition plans. You're moving the organization from relying on a person to relying on a playbook. It sounds so simple, but culturally, that is a monumental shift.
That's a really good point, because for a lot of people, job security feels like hoarding that unique knowledge. If I'm the only one who knows how to fix this critical server, they can't fire me.
Exactly. But for the health of the institution, that knowledge hoarding is a massive liability. And until they fix that, that 63.4 score is just incredibly fragile. It's a house of cards held up by a handful of veterans.
Okay, let's move on to the second major theme, communication. The report calls this, and I love the term, the universal friction point. Now, look, I feel like every single employee survey in the history of the world has some version of communication could be better. But this seems more acute than just, hey, you should read your emails more often.
It is. It's the most consistent complaint across every single department, every level of seniority. And the really specific grievance is what they call the discovery problem.
The discovery problem. That sounds almost positive, like, scientific discovery.
In this context, it is the exact opposite of positive. It refers to how the school's leadership finds out that something critical is broken. Discovery here means that departments are frequently learning about major system outages from their own angry users before the IT department ever notifies them.
Oh, that is the worst feeling. So you can imagine the chair of the Department of Surgery gets a frantic call from a surgeon saying, I can't access the patient's schedule for this afternoon, and the chair has heard absolutely nothing from IT.
Exactly. It makes the leadership look completely incompetent and totally out of the loop. They're blindsided. And if there's one thing leaders hate, it's being blindsided.
And then, when they try to reach out to IT to figure out what's going on, they run into the next problem, which is called the black hole effect.
The black hole. This is the part of the report that I think every single listener will relate to on a spiritual level.
I'm guessing this means you send an email in, and absolutely nothing comes out.
You submit a ticket, you get that immediate automated robot email that says, we have received your request. And then just silence for hours, sometimes for days. The automated replies have no context. They don't say what this means for you. Users don't get consistent human acknowledgments. It's that your ticket number is 8675309 response that just makes you feel like a number in a deli line.
And you just sit there wondering if anyone has even seen it.
And that's the thing. Silence creates anxiety. If I don't hear anything back from you, I'm forced to assume you're not doing anything.
So what's the solution here? Is it just about hiring more people to answer the phones faster?
No. And this is where the report is actually really insightful. It makes this brilliant distinction between perfection and hygiene.
Perfection versus hygiene.
Right. The users, the doctors, the researchers, they aren't actually asking for technical perfection. They're not expecting zero downtime. They work in a hospital. They know that complex machines break sometimes.
Sure, things fail.
What they're asking for is transparency. And the report calls this basic level of transparency communication hygiene. It's about standardizing the absolute basics. For example, a mandatory 24-hour ticket acknowledgement.
And not from a robot.
Not from a robot, from a human. Even if it just says, hi, I'm Sarah, I've been assigned your ticket, and I'll have an update for you by tomorrow. That alone changes the entire dynamic.
And the report mentioned restore notices as well.
Yes. This is a huge, huge missed opportunity in so many organizations. A restore notice is just an email that formally closes the loop. Hey, that issue you reported 3 days ago, it is now resolved.
That seems so obvious, but it gets missed all the time. How many times have you just sat there, refreshing your browser, wondering if the system is back online yet?
All the time. Without that notice, the user is left guessing. They waste their own time checking and rechecking. And the report also suggests providing expected start dates for non-urgent requests.
Wow.
Even if the answer is, we are swamped right now and can't look at this for 3 weeks, just telling the user, we plan to start on this in 3 weeks, is infinitely better than saying nothing at all.
Right, because if you say nothing, I assume you're ignoring me. If you tell me 3 weeks, I might be a little annoyed, but at least I can plan around it. I can manage expectations with my own team.
Precisely. It respects the user's time and their planning needs. When communication is poor, it signals a lack of control and oversight. It turns a simple technical glitch into a fundamental trust issue.
It's the difference between we're on it and radio silence.
One builds confidence, the other completely destroys it.
Okay, so we've got the hero problem, the communication black hole. Let's talk about the big picture now, strategy. This section of the report was titled The Strategic Void.
And this, by the numbers, was the lowest scoring category of all. Strategic alignment scored a dismal 13.4 out of a possible 21.
Ouch. 13.4. I mean, that's failing by any metric you want to use.
It is. The core complaint here, when you read through the comments, is that IIT is seen purely as a utility provider, like the electric company or the water company or the plumber.
It's the old, I call you when the toilet is clogged, but I don't invite you to help me design the new bathroom.
That's it, exactly. You call them after you've already bought the new house just to come hook up the lights. The departments feel like IT is brought in at the very end of a process after all the important decisions have been made, just to hook things up.
And then, I'm guessing, IT often has to be the bad guy.
Of course. They're the ones who have to say, whoa, wait a minute, you can't use that new fancy software you bought because it has massive security risks and doesn't integrate with anything. So they become the Department of No.
Which nobody likes.
And what the departments say they want is what the report calls conditions for a yes. They want to be able to go to IT at the beginning and say, we want to do this innovative new thing with patient data. How can we do it safely and effectively? They want a partner who helps them navigate the rules, not a policeman who just puts up a roadblock.
Okay, now this leads us directly to the CAO advisory group paradox. This was my favorite mystery in the whole report, because the data seems to completely contradict common sense.
It's a fantastic data anomaly. It really is.
So let's explain the setup for everyone listening. There is a specific advisory group made up of chief administrative officers, or CAOs. These are the senior business leaders within the departments, the heavy hitters.
And this group is designed to work directly with IT leadership to give feedback, share priorities, and help steer the ship. It's a governance body.
Right, and the theory here is classic management 101. You get the leaders in a room, you listen to their needs, you get their buy-in, and satisfaction should go up. Simple.
Except the data says the exact opposite.
It's so weird. What does it say?
It says that the CAOs who actually sit on this advisory group report significantly lower satisfaction scores of 55.5 than the CAOs who are not on the committee. Their score was a 67.
Hold on. That makes no sense. The people with the direct line, the most access, the most influence, and the most insight into IT's plans are the most unhappy. Why?
The report unpacks this paradox, and it points to three main causes. The first one is a perceived lack of impact. The members feel like they go to these meetings, they give their input, they spend their valuable time in this room, but it never actually shifts priorities or changes timelines. The outcomes feel, and this is the word they use, predetermined.
So it's collaboration theater. It's the illusion of collaboration. We'll pretend to listen to you, but we're going to do what we already planned to do anyway.
That is the distinct feeling they get. It feels performative. And there is nothing more frustrating for a busy executive than sitting through a 2-hour meeting that is just for show.
Absolutely. Okay, what's the second cause?
The second is the closed circle problem. The CAOs who aren't in the group feel totally disconnected from it. There are no formal minutes, no regular updates to the broader community. News travels through informal gossip, if it travels at all.
So let me see if I get this. The people inside the room are frustrated because they feel like they aren't being heard, and the people outside the room are fine because they don't even know what they're missing.
Or they just assume the group is handling things effectively. In this case, ignorance is bliss. The outsiders assume the governance system is working. The insiders have seen how the sausage is made, and they realize the machine is broken.
And there was a third point, too, about representation.
Yes. The group is simply too small to represent the huge variety of needs across the school. Think about it. A CAO for a clinical department like oncology has vastly different IT needs than a CAO for a basic science research lab that deals with mice and microscopes. If the group doesn't reflect that variety, the advice being given is skewed and incomplete.
So the big takeaway here is that this is a major governance failure. The very mechanism that was designed to build trust, this advisory group, is actually eroding it.
It's creating cynicism, because when you invite people to the table and then you ignore their input, you generate way more resentment than if you had never invited them in the first place.
That is a powerful lesson for any leader listening right now. Do not ask for feedback if you aren't prepared to actually act on it.
Or at the very least, be transparent about why you can't act on it. We heard you, and here's exactly why we can't do that right now. That's respectful. Silence and ignoring it is not.
Okay, let's pivot a bit to the specialized needs of this organization, because we're not just talking about office workers who need Outlook and Excel to work. We're talking about high-end, cutting-edge medical research.
And this is where any one-size-fits-all approach to IT just completely breaks down. The report talks about neighborhood variability, meaning not all of those local IT clusters are created equal.
The have and have not dynamic.
Yes, exactly. High-performing neighborhoods have visible leadership. You know who the boss is. You get predictable, standardized communication. The low-performing neighborhoods, on the other hand, feel chaotic and under-resourced.
Well, what's the fix?
The report suggests a model of core consistency, local flexibility.
Which means
It means you standardize the basics. Things like those ticket response times we talked about should be the same for everyone, everywhere. Every neighborhood should get the same baseline service. But at the same time, you have to allow the local teams the flexibility to handle the specific and sometimes very weird needs of their particular department.
And that weirdness is very real. The report talks about research computing. And suddenly we're talking about things like Linux, R, Python, a whole different language than what a standard corporate IT person who manages Windows laptops is used to.
This is a huge source of friction, and it ties into the idea of technical debt. Central IT, for good reasons, tries to standardize everything. It makes the environment more secure and easier to manage. Everyone gets a Dell laptop with Windows 11. That makes perfect sense for the finance department.
But not for the scientists.
Not at all. Researchers need bespoke, high-powered tools. They need high-performance compute clusters to crunch massive genomic data sets to even be competitive for grants.
So the friction point is when IT says, sorry, you can't install that weird open source statistical software because it's not on our approved list. But for the researcher, that tool is essential. They literally can't do their work without it.
Exactly. And a top-tier biostatistician is not going to come work at your university if you tell them they can't use Python because it's not a standard corporate tool. The report also warns that a lot of these labs are running on legacy systems, old databases that haven't been updated in a decade. They are a ticking time bomb of technical debt that could fail at any moment.
And the recommendation isn't to force them onto the standard tools. It's a phrase I really liked, enablement with guardrails.
It's a great phrase. It means stop fighting the researchers. Instead, create secure fast lanes for their specific tools. The message becomes, yes, of course you can use Python, but you have to use it inside the secure sandbox environment so you don't accidentally take down the entire hospital network.
So you're supporting the science, not blocking it.
Precisely. And then on top of all that, you have the complexity of these cross-boundary workflows. This school of medicine doesn't exist in a vacuum. It has to work seamlessly with partners like UW Health, the VA, the Medical Foundation.
And the report mentions these gray areas, like when a new physician needs to be onboarded across all those systems, who actually owns that process? Is it the school's responsibility, the hospitals?
Yeah.
The VAs?
And often the answer is it's all three, which means nobody takes full ownership. It's ambiguous. And the proposed solution is to create shared SLAs, service level agreements, and something they call escalation choreographies.
Escalation choreographies. I love that. It sounds like a dance.
It's a great term for a critical concept. It essentially means who calls whom in the first 30 minutes of a major crisis. If a system goes down that affects both the school and the hospital, do we waste an hour pointing fingers and arguing about whose fault it is?
Or do we have a predefined playbook that says, you call this person, I call that person, and we meet on this conference bridge in 15 minutes?
That's the choreography. It seems like so much of what this report is asking for at its core is just clarity. Tell me who to call. Tell me when it will be fixed. Tell me who is responsible.
Because clarity decreases anxiety.
And right now, there is a lot of anxiety in the system because all of those lines are blurred.
Okay, let's talk about a bright spot, though. There has to be some good news in here. The BRM model.
The business relationship managers, they are in many ways the unsung heroes of the story.
The report calls them the translators.
And they are. Their job is to sit in that space between the highly technical IT teams and the highly specialized medical professionals and translate needs into solutions. They are trusted because they provide advocacy and clarity. They are the human face of IT that isn't scary or dismissive.
But, of course, there's a limitation. There's always a but.
There is. The report finds that currently they are used far too much for tactical triage. They're constantly putting out fires. My email is broken. Can you help me? My printer won't connect to the network.
So they're just playing whack-a-mole all day.
They are. And the report argues that they need to be elevated to strategic facilitation. They need to stop being the emergency room doctors who are just stitching up wounds all day.
And start being the primary care physicians who plan your long-term health.
That's the analogy, yes. Instead of just fixing the broken leg after the fall, Let's talk about diet and exercise and preventative care so you don't fall in the first place.
So what does that look like in practice?
The report suggests they should be running quarterly. You said we did cycles with their departments, actually showing them, here's the list of things you asked for 3 months ago, and here is the progress we've made on each one.
That accountability loop seems to be completely missing right now.
It is. And if the BRMs can make that critical shift from fixer to partner, they can become that strategic bridge that the departments are so desperately craving. They can be the ones who sit down at the beginning of a project and say, okay, in 18 months, you want to launch this new clinical trial. Let's start building the IT infrastructure for it today.
So we've outlined a lot of problems. The hero trap, the communication black hole, the strategic void. But the report also provides a roadmap out of it. Section 6 lays out a plan, and it divides it into quick wins and strategic moves.
Which is smart. It acknowledges that you can't fix the entire culture overnight, but you can definitely fix your broken email templates by next Tuesday.
Right, so the quick wins, the things they can do in the next 30 to 60 days, what are we looking at?
Simple stuff to stop the bleeding. First, reinstate that 24-hour human acknowledgement standard for all tickets. That should happen tomorrow. Second, add what this means for you. Summaries to all technical outage emails.
Oh, please. No more emails that say, Server Cluster 4B is experiencing intermittent packet loss and increased latency.
Right. Change that to, for the next 2 hours, you may not be able to access your patient records. We are working on it. Plain English.
And the third one was to publish who to contact matrices. Just stop making people guess who to call.
These things seem so low effort, but they're incredibly high impact. They immediately signal to the entire organization that leadership is listening and is starting to react.
Okay, so that's the short term. Then you have the strategic moves, the long-term play.
And this is where we get back to fixing the root causes. First, institutionalize individual success.
Which is the fix for the hero problem.
It means cross-training, job shadowing, mentoring. It's about cloning your heroes. If Dave is the only person who knows how a critical system works, then 3 other people need to shadow Dave for the next 6 months until that knowledge is transferred.
Then there was business immersion. That one sounded really interesting to me.
This is basically mandatory empathy training. You send your IT staff to go sit with the researchers and the clinicians for a day. Let them actually see what it's like to try and admit a patient into the hospital when the system is lagging. Let them feel the panic in the room when a grant deadline is looming and the compute cluster freezes up.
It's a lot easier to dismiss a help ticket as low priority when you're sitting in a quiet server room. It's a lot harder when you've seen the stressed out look on the doctor's face who's trying to use that system.
Context is everything. You can't effectively support what you don't understand. And if the IT staff truly understands the mission of the school, they will work differently. They'll prioritize differently.
And finally, modernize research computing, actually creating a specific research enablement desk.
A dedicated concierge service for the scientists. Stop treating them like they're just office workers who forgot their password. Treat them like the high-value, revenue-generating power users that they are.
So let's try to bring it all together. What's the final narrative here?
The bottom line is that IIT is at a pivot point, a critical inflection point. They have all the right ingredients. They have good, dedicated people, the local teams, the trusted BRMs. But the system that's holding them all together is incredibly fragile.
That score of 63.4, it's a hold, as you said. It's being artificially propped up by the old guard.
It is. And if those veteran staff members retire before the underlying processes are fixed, the whole system breaks. The score drops, trust evaporates, and you're in a full-blown crisis.
So the goal is to move from this developing partnership to a strong partnership. And the only way to do that is by making excellence repeatable, not accidental.
Repeatable, not accidental. That is the key phrase from this entire report. You cannot run a modern world-class medical school by relying on happy accidents of history, like having a great IT guy who just happens to have been there for 20 years. You need a system that delivers excellence no matter who is sitting in the chair on any given day.
Before we sign off, I want to leave our listeners with one last provocative thought that really struck me while I was reading this. The report briefly mentions the concept of shadow IT.
Oh yes, the hidden network. Every large organization has one.
Right. And the report says that this misalignment between IT and the departments drives people to build their own local solutions completely outside of governance. They go out and buy their own servers and stick them under a desk. They hire their own freelance coders to build a database.
Because the central IT is either too slow or it says no too often, and they just need to get their work done.
Exactly. So here's the question I was left with. If an IT department doesn't invite the business to the table to co-design the roadmap,
Right.
is that IT department actually creating the very security risks it's so desperately trying to prevent?
That is the ultimate painful irony of it all, isn't it? By trying to control everything too tightly, by not building a true partnership, they force their smartest users to go rogue. And a rogue user with a server under their desk is an unsecured user.
They are manufacturing their own worst nightmare.
They are. And the only way out of that spiral is to open the doors, let the users in, and start building that roadmap together.
A really fascinating look at all the human drama hidden behind a simple score of 63.4. Thank you for walking us through it.
It was my pleasure.
And thank you all for listening. We'll see you on the next Deep Dive.